Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot. I will be releasing this video on Thursday. It is my Canadian edition. The regular sort of US nonsense crazy over there, that'll come out on Friday, just like normal. Okay, so thank you for joining me here today, taking a little bit of your time to spend with me. I'm so grateful for it. Appreciate it. Your comments are so generous and so kind. And I don't think I often take the time to just really acknowledge how really sweet those comments are and how much they mean to me. So thank you very, very much for that. So today I'm looking at primarily, I'm going to be looking at the Alberta election. So the Alberta election is apparently going to be officially announced, I think at the beginning of May. And as near as I can understand, the election is probably going to be somewhere like the 29th of May or something. We have very short election cycles in this country, for which I think most Canadians, after watching what goes on in the States, are incredibly grateful. So this is the deal. In Alberta, we have actually two women who are competing for the title of Premier of Alberta. One is Danielle Smith. She has been sort of an interim premier for about 6 months when the previous premier, Jason Kenney, was sort of unceremoniously sort of left office as a result of a non-confidence vote. So she's been around. Now, she is part or leader of the United Progressive Conservatives. Now, I'm not going to go on and on for those people who are not in Alberta. Suffice to say, her political hero is Ron DeSantis. I think that pretty much says it all. She has had one gaffe after another. She says things like, I think one of my more favorite ones, understanding, okay, that this is the province of Alberta, place where over the last few years, there have been untold indigenous graves found on the properties of what were residential schools. Keep that in mind. Well, according to her, the unvaccinated, okay, so those people who did not get COVID injections, the unvaccinated are the most discriminated group of people in her history, in her understanding. Like, what? Excuse me? Are you out of your mind? As most people know, Canadians are justifiably proud of their healthcare system. And listen, it has flaws and it's not perfect, and we're dealing with doctor shortages and long wait times, et cetera, et cetera. However, we pay for that service. And then when we have an emergency, a crisis, a regular doctor's visit, we need x-rays, blood work, all of that is covered. We don't pay for that. And she marches out with this statement, well, I don't know why the government has to pay for your visit to the doctor. Well, duh, because that's what we do here in Canada. She is ruffling feathers left, right, and center. She has no political experience. And she only won that leadership position by an incredibly, incredibly narrow margin. In fact, honestly, such a small margin that if it had been a non-confidence vote instead of a sort of a election for the leader of a party, he probably would have been booted out of office. So not super popular. However, she believes, and traditionally there is, a very, very strong support for conservative type government in the province of Alberta, particularly in rural Alberta. That's for those of you who are American listening to this. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I get that and understand that. Alberta's sort of called the Texas of the North, right? And there's a reason for that. So she is being challenged by the previous uh, premier prior to Jason Kennedy. Her name is Rachel Notley, and she is leader of the NDP, which is the New Democratic Party, and they would be the equivalent of kind of the Bernie Sanders wing. And she has strong support in like city centers like Edmonton, Calgary, that kind of thing. So I want to take a look. I read something yesterday, and it said basically something along the lines of the effect of the election really is between Danielle Smith and her mouth, okay, because she just does not seem to be capable of not sticking her foot in it. Rachel Notley, on the other hand, already has experience as premier and comes from a very strong political background. Okay. So she was raised on politics. I want to take a look at the Met elections coming up. Let's see if we can figure out what the heck's going to happen and who will be victorious. All right. Now, I know I very rarely bring my screen down anymore, but I am going to do that today simply because of the way I'm going to do this reading. So I have a question. Come on down. Here we go. Let's see what we can find out. All right, so I'm going to put cards out first for Rachel Notley, and then I'm going to reshuffle. I'm going to put cards out for Danielle Smith. So they're side by side. Okay. Here we go, Alberta. I will also, after this, I am going to be taking a peek at sort of federal government politics, the federal government, Justin Trudeau, and see how he's doing. All right, so Rachel Notley, upcoming election. Rachel Notley, upcoming election. Rachel Notley, upcoming election. Hold on here. I can do this without knocking my computer off the desk. Okay. Just briefly and quickly, this is actually a good thing because the death card very often represents a rebirth. It represents rising, phoenix rising out of the ashes. It represents an ending and a new beginning. And so were Rachel Notley to be reelected, that really would be, rising from the ashes because she was removed from office in the election with Jason Kennedy, who then got removed because of a non-confidence vote. So she's actually starting off in a position, because it's very unusual in fact, I think it might be the first time, or certainly very few times, where a premier is sort of reelected after they've left office. So that really actually fits the energy around how she's doing. She has the high ground here. And in fact, he has Danielle Smith running a little bit scared because it's an easy enough thing to just point out all the ridiculous stuff that this woman has said over the years, particularly in the last 6 months, and say, honestly, is this who you want representing your province? So she's got the higher ground. She also appears to have some money behind her. Not only does she have the support of close associates or donors, okay, and again, in Canada we don't do this sort of whole dark money and donors have unbelievable, incredible power. We just don't go down that road. But because she has the King of Pentacles and the Three of Pentacles, Sorry, dog's acting up. Um, because she has that, it definitely looks like there is some support behind her, tangible support and financial support. And she has the Lover's card. So this is again bringing together those two um, um, elements. Okay. So there's a partnership that's sort of being formed between her and the people who vote her in. Now, following the Lover's card, she has a Ten of Swords. And the thing is that the Ten of Swords and the Nine of Swords follows this. Okay, this is not wonderful news, but it's also not bad news because either way, this election is going to be very, very close. This is not going to be a cakewalk for either person. This is going to be a close and tight election. And so there is worry and there is concern. And I got to tell you, a lot of the worry and the concern is from the people of Alberta. And they're really worried about exactly how much damage Danielle Smith can do. And so what we're looking for, what people are looking for with sort of Notley win is to try to scale back some of the really outrageous stuff that that she's doing. I have to tell you, honestly, if Canada had a Disneyland, she would probably be going after them too. Like, okay, as soon as you recognize that this is who her DeSantis is who her idol is, it sort of lets you know everything you need to know about where this woman is. All right. It's Rachel Notley for right now. Let's see what Danielle Smith looks like. Obviously, I'm a little biased, okay? You can tell. And I'm sorry if I'm not objective enough for everybody, but I don't like Danielle Smith. She carries the same energy that surrounds DeSantis and Trump and, whoever that premier is in, or the governor is in Texas and the southern states. She has that very similar attitude, and it doesn't sit well. Danielle Smith election, Danielle Smith election, Danielle Smith election. She has big hopes. She has great expectations. She thinks she's going to win. But the reality is she's going to have trouble juggling her resources. She doesn't have the support she thinks that she has. Hangman. She is going to find herself almost like stalemated. It's like, how can I say this? It feels as if she has support, and the support she has is strong. But it's sort of like Trump. The people who support him are all in, but everybody else is like, And so she's in the same position where she's not growing support. She's maintaining support by people who don't pay enough attention to politics to actually understand what's going on. And I mean that like I'm not being insulting or derogatory, but you know, the thing is this is that situation where it's like, okay, you have said one thing that I really, really like and really, really agree with. And for her, the thing that everybody, well, likes and agrees with is she was really in support of the Freedom Riders. She was in support of, blocking the border crossing. She was in support of the people who shut down Ottawa during the COVID epidemic because they didn't want to get inoculated. And so for those people who really like that, they are not listening to the other things that she wants to do or the other things that she says, and in some ways, quietly and privately and maybe not so quietly, they agree with her. Okay. So her problem is going to be she's not growing her base. She's going to have some bad luck come her way. And the more she talks, the more flustered she becomes, and the worse she makes it for herself. One of her other recent gaffes was that she was on and on about how she had like indigenous ancestors, right? Except nobody could find them. And when she was confronted with it, she said, well, you can't blame me for not knowing every single detail of my family history. I'm paraphrasing, or some such nonsense like that. So she says stuff. It flies out of her mouth. She doesn't think of the consequences. She's under investigation right now because somebody who is being charged connected with the disregard of COVID situations. I think this was somebody who had something to do with that border crossing, but I could be wrong. She was commiserating with him. That when you're premier, you don't get to be that blatant about whose side you're on. So what I want to do, because I have to tell you, these cards are not definitive in one way or the other. I'm going to do a quick shuffle, and I want to take a look at the election, generally speaking. Alberta general election 2023. 2023 Alberta election, 2023 Alberta election, 2023 Alberta election. And again, Danielle Smith is once again not really paying attention to the youth. Okay, those young souls who are causing havoc not havoc. They're pushing out those old ideas and attitudes in the States. Well, you know what? They're up here too. We have Canadians who feel the same way, Canadian youth, and that's going to be a problem for her. All right. So, all right. Part of what we're looking at is that because Canadian politics are sort of the way Canadian politics is, people are actually not paying attention yet. And they're not going to be paying attention for probably another week or two. Okay. So right now, even though there's, ads and et cetera, and God almighty, when I go on my YouTube thing, I mean, just about every single sort of, commercial, is from the NDP, right? So the advertising has already started. It's out there. But by and large, people are not yet they're not really focused yet on the election. Interesting, we have the Queen of Cups and we have the Queen of Wands. And so this is about who people are going to most resonate with. So on the one hand, you have the Queen of Cups, which is it's a comforting queen. It makes you feel safe. The queen is nurturing. And the Queen of Wands is about communications and ideas. And so because Danielle Smith is not particularly brilliant the way she communicates, I think that it's going to come down to who presents a message that people in the province resonate with when they actually wake up and start paying attention. As I said before, this is going to be a really close race. The Eight of Cups here sort of makes me feel as if Danielle Smith may be leaving office. This is a going away and a disappointment. And the Ten of Pentacles in some ways has to do with the resources of Alberta, honoring the resources of Alberta, making those resources work for the people of Alberta without stripping the province, which tends to be more of an NDP kind of platform. Queen of Pentacles, Page of Swords, Knight of Cups. So for right now, my prediction is that this is going to be very, very tight and very, very close. And it wouldn't surprise me if Notley won it, but literally won it kind of, by a kiss and a promise. Okay, this is not going to be a landslide victory. Let's just ask some basic questions here. Pendulum. Is Danielle Smith as a result of the May or the 2023 election? I think I'm sure it's at the end of May. I don't think it migrates into June. Is Danielle Smith going to remain Premier of Alberta after the upcoming election? Is she going to remain Premier of Alberta after the upcoming election? It's a no. Is Rachel Notley going to become the Premier of Alberta as a result of the upcoming Alberta election? And that's a yes. Okay. So, as I said, the cards are not definitive. It really does speak to, and actually energetically, I can tell you, it's almost a little bit volatile. And I don't mean violence, but it just feels like there's going to be stuff coming out sort of almost right to the end. And, people who are paying attention are going to, and this is the thing, right? I mean, most people already know how they're voting. But there's the youth. They're a little bit more open. And I think that they could very well be the triggering or the deciding factor. All right. So that's what I know about Alberta. Let's take a look now. Okay. So I looked this up because I didn't know when it was. The next federal election needs to be called by October 20th of 2025. It's like April of 2023. This is like 18 months away. So right now, it's a little bit more difficult to figure out, where we're going to be in a year and a half. Now, the thing that sort of is going against Trudeau is that um, the conservative government who he would be running against, they are again in sort of that image of Trump. And it's more of an attacking kind of politics, right? I mean, last week or so, they were yelling and screaming about some vacation he took to Jamaica and how it was really expensive. And they keep attacking him about these trips, but he has very, very close, old, established family friends in these places. And so one of them, the one that made me laugh my head off was one of them, and I don't know who the guy's name was, I don't care. But he lived on an island. And everybody was yelling and screaming because he took a private plane to get from the mainland to the island. Well, yeah. How did you think he was going to get there, on a dinghy? Like, and again, that kind of politics is so it 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 is the opposite of the direction that energetically the world is moving in. And so there are simply going to be people, again, young people, who get turned off by that kind of attack politics. And I'm not saying that the liberals are purist driven snow, and there's stuff that the liberals are doing that are really annoying people who have been liberal supporters. And the other reality is that it's a very unusual thing. It's not unheard of. but it is pretty unusual for a prime minister to be elected 3 consecutive times, okay? So, and, again, let's just take an overview. I just want to take kind of a quick look and just see, generally speaking, right now, how we're doing in terms of our federal politics. And I don't know, there's some people say that the liberals have become way too liberal. Um, some people are saying that the conservatives are really becoming really, really too conservative. The other party I should mention is the New Democrat Party, which right now is sort of um, the party that is working with the Liberal Party because the Liberals have a minority government. The NDP has joined ranks and said, um, we will support you and sort of make sure that you don't get booted out of office for an unconfidence vote or anything like that. But these are the things we want from you. One of the things that the NDP wanted was a national dental plan for young children, people at lower incomes. Of course, this makes perfect sense. But across the board, in terms of kind of from one end of Canada to the other, at this point, anyways, it doesn't feel as if the NDP have enough strength to actually become the governing party. But let's take a look and see what we can see. I think for people out there who are panicking um, about the election, everybody needs to take a deep breath and recognize it's 18 months away. And there's a lot that's going to happen between now and 18 months from now. Um, as I'm recording this, apparently Trudeau is in New York talking about, trying to encourage the United States to become a stronger trading partner. I think there are certain areas that they're looking at. And the opposition is standing in the House of Commons singing New York, New York. Like, what the hell is that? Like, grow up. Because you know what, buddy? If you actually get elected premier, do you think you're not going to be going to New York? Do you think you're not going to be encouraging closer trade relationships with the United States? Like, I don't get it. Let's take a look, shall we? Coming, no. Federal election 2025, federal election 2025, federal election 2025. Come on down, let's see what we've got. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. So we're starting off with the Two of Swords, which is kind of where I started, right? People aren't paying attention yet. It's too early. People are focused on the things they're focused on, and the federal election is not one of those things. There are people right now who are incredibly annoyed with the federal government. There's people out there who are really annoyed with the conservative government. But 18 months is like a really, really, really long time, and a lot can happen between now and then. And so you have those people who are entrenched, right? Those people who they're going to vote the way they vote because they've always voted that way, their parents voted that way, their grandparents voted that way, or they are just so aggravated with one party that sort of despite their nose, they're going to end up voting for the other party. And I said this before, Canadians do not vote people into office, we vote people out of office. It's just what we do out here, okay? I don't know why, but we do it. And it's dangerous because when you get so hell-bent and determined to get somebody out of office, you're not really paying attention to what the other party is saying. One of the tricks that the conservative uses, and I think to some degree the Republicans in the states use it, is that, we think people know what to do with their money and know how to spend their money, and we're going to put more money in their pocket because we trust that they're going to make the right decisions. Okay, so the more money that they're going to put in your pocket is $5 a month, and they're going to reduce $100 worth of benefits that you already receive, whether that is in the healthcare system or, whatever else. But people only hear they're going to put more money in my pocket. And they don't understand that in order to do that, in order to give you those $5, they're going to cut $100 worth of benefits from every single person. Or, obviously I'm choosing numbers out of the sky. But you get my point, right? They clump onto a message or a phrase and they don't listen to the rest of the story. As of right now, it feels as if Canadians, by and large, are looking for a change. But this is interesting. You have the King and the Queen of Cups. The NDP and the Liberals are sort of like the feel-good parties, right? They're the ones that want to give you stuff. They want to make your life easier. They want to make it better. So you have a strong sort of coalition here with those certain feel-good parties. And in fact, the NDP have already, I believe, said that if the Conservative Party gets in and has a minority government, hell will freeze over before they will side with them. Okay, so you really do have the Liberals and the NDPs kind of in bed together because in some ways their attitudes, their philosophies are very, very similar. It is the youth. It is the youth, again, who are going to push forward for a more balanced representation, for more fairness in the way things are done. They want the riches to be shared across the board. They don't see the world as us or me versus them. They see it as us and how do we make all of us better and all of us stronger. So this is interesting. This is interesting. The youth also does not like bullying tactics. They don't like dirty politics. They don't like kind of people who are insulting, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't sit well with them. And again, it very much feels like when it comes right down to it, the party that loses is going to be the party that does not offer that unity and that equality for every Canadian, not just some. Politics, so read this as if it is reversed, okay? The politician who is cruel, the politician who wants to splash and they don't care, it's not going to do well. They are not going to do well. It sort of makes me wonder if, in some ways, the New Democrats may actually end up being a bit more of a powerhouse in the upcoming election than I think right now, or than I can see right now, because it definitely looks again like the youth is definitely leaning towards, again, a more inclusive kind of country. Yay, youth. You gotta love those young ones, man. They are on missions and they're accomplishing them. This has been a really long video. Wow, look at that. I'm almost at 35 minutes. Okay, thank you so, so much for being here. Don't forget tomorrow, the US political reading will come out. And for those of you who are interested, don't forget that on Saturday, the weekly Pick Your Crystal reading comes out. So until next time, take care and be well. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.